My name is Kimarion Richardson, and I'm going to be talking about the Black Revolution by Malcolm X. Malcolm X was born May 19th, 1925. He was a minister, civil rights activist, and a prominent black nationalist leader who served as a spokesman for the Nation of Islam during the 1950s and 60s. Malcolm X was a pivotal figure in the American civil rights movement and black nationalism. He also advocated for race pride, self-defense, and the need for Black Americans to protect themselves against oppression, which became foundational ideas for the Black Power movement in the 1960s and 70s. His challenge to the nonviolent approach of Martin Luther King Jr. helped shape the ideological landscape of the Black freedom struggle, emphasizing a more militant stance. Malcolm X's legacy continues to influence discussion on race, identity, and social justice in America. His mission was to empower Black people in the fight against racial oppression and injustice. He advocated for Black pride, self-reliance, and human rights, emphasizing the need for the Black people to defend themselves by any means necessary if they are faced with not with violence or injustice. Malcolm X delivered his speech in 1963 during a time of deep racial injustice and widespread frustration in the Black community. Unlike the more integrationist views of leaders like Dr. King, Malcolm X's message here is revolutionary, both in tone and intent. His purpose is to call for radical change, demanding Black liberation by any means necessary. One of the most impressive parts of this speech is how tailored it is to Malcolm X's audience, namely Black Americans, who are confused with the slow pace of civil rights reform. He speaks directly to their pain, but also empowers them. Rather than asking for sympathy from white liberals or mainstream politicians, Malcolm speaks to those who are ready for a new path, those tired of waiting. His repeated use of you and we feels solidarity on solidarity. On page 354, he says, "You don't catch hell because you're a Baptist. You catch hell because you're a Black man." This line unifies his audience across religions. For his logos, Malcolm X uses historical evidence and political analysis to make logical arguments about the failures of the American system. An example of that, he points out the contradiction in how America supports revolutions abroad but suppresses them at home. On page 353, he says, America is the only country on earth that is in a position to tell others how to do it. But she herself is guilty of more racism and more violence than any other country on earth today. This is a direct critique of the U.S. He uses logic to show that the American promise of equality is a lie for Black citizens. By doing so, he challenges his audience to recognize that waiting for justice from the oppressor is irrational. In his pathos, Malcolm X masterfully taps into the deep emotional pain and anger in the Black community. He evokes he invokes powerful emotions to rally people to action. An example of this is when he says on page 354, "When you drop that violence on me, then you've made me go insane, and I'm not responsible for what I do." Here, he channels the frustration and trauma of constant oppression. His words are designed to connect with an audience that feels unheard, disrespected, and abused. He doesn't shy from anger. He uses it strategically to show that the status of all this is intolerable. And for ethos, Malcolm X builds his credibility by aligning himself with the global struggle for liberation. He doesn't just speak as a local activist, he speaks as a global revolutionary. An example of that is on page 253, he says, the black revolution is worldwide in scope and in nature. By aligning the black American struggle with global movements, he gives it moral and ethical weight. I also have a video of his a little bit of his speech as my primary source.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies. Everybody is here. As many of you know, last March, when it was announced that I was no longer in the Black Muslim movement, it was pointed out that it was my intention to work among the 22 million non-Muslim Afro-Americans and to try and form some type of organization or create a situation where the young people, our young people, the students and others, could study the problems of our people for a period of time and then come up with a new analysis and give us some new ideas and some new suggestions as to how to approach a problem that too many other people had been playing around with for too long. And that we would have some kind of meeting and determine at a later date whether to form a black nationalist party or a black nationalist army. There have been many of our people across the country from all walks of life who have taken it upon themselves to try and pool their ideas and to come up with some kind of solution to the problem that confronts all of our people. And tonight we are here to try and get an understanding of what it is they've come up with. Also, recently, when I was blessed to make a trip or pilgrimage, a religious pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, where I met many people from all over the world, plus spent many weeks in Africa, trying to broaden my own scope and get more of an open mind to look at the problem as it actually is. One of the things that I realized, and I realized this even before going over there, was that our African brothers have gained their independence faster than you and I here in America have. They've also gained recognition and respect as human beings much faster than you and I. Just 10 years ago on the African continent, our people were colonized. They were suffering all forms of colonization, oppression, exploitation, degradation, humiliation, discrimination, and every other kind of Asian. And in a short time, they have gained more independence, more recognition, more respect as human beings than you and I have. And you and I live in a country which is supposed to be the citadel of education, freedom, justice, democracy, and all of those other pretty sounding words. So it was our intention to try and find out what was our African brothers doing to get results so that you and I could study what they had done and perhaps gain from that study or benefit from their experiences. And my traveling over there was designed to help to find out how. One of the first things that the independent African nations did was to form an organization called the Organization of African Unity. The purpose of our organization of Afro-American Unity, which has the same aim and objective, to fight whoever gets in our way.
So in that, you can see how his tone of voice and emotion gives off a passionate way, and he has energy and anger, which brings the speech to life. His tone helps listeners feel the seriousness of racial oppression and the need for action. Also, his body language and his delivery, because his facial expressions, hand movements, and posture all reinforce his points, and his eye contact shows confidence and connection with the audience. And his delivery is forceful, which makes his arguments hit harder. And you can hear in the background the audience cheering and applauding, which shows how this message resonated with black communities at the time. And also, seeing the setting of the room basically just puts you in the room in the 1960s when they struggled. Legacy. He was a black pride in self. He had black pride and he was self determined. He was he had a major voice in promoting black pride, self respect, and self reliance. He encouraged African Americans to take pride in their heritage and stand strong against oppression, helping shape the foundation for the Black is Beautiful movement and later movements like Black Power. He also had a global perspective on Black liberation. Later in his life after his pilgrimage to Mecca, Malcolm began to speak more about human rights and build connections between the struggles of African Americans and oppressed people globally. He broadened the conversation to one of international justice. He also co-founded the organization of the Afro American Unity. In 1964, Malcolm X established the Organization of Afro American Unity with the goal of unifying African Americans and promoting their political, economic, and social empowerment, and also promoting self-determination and self-defense. Malcolm X emphasized the need for African Americans to take control of their own destinies and assert their rights through self-determination. He believed that African Americans should rely on their own efforts and resources to improve their conditions, rather than depending on the goodwill of others. Malcolm X advocated for self-defense as a means of protecting the African American community against violence and oppression. He argued that African Americans had the right to defend themselves when confronted with systematic racism and physical aggression. Then